In this video, I'm going to give away the sauce. I'm going to show you how to stop guessing with your creative process and build a foundation around your creative art world that evolves the attention that you get into a connected and supporting fan base. If you're an independent artist making great music right now, but you feel completely stuck or burnt out by your creative process or from not knowing what to create and post online, this video is for you because you don't need to become a global superstar, you don't need to give up your music rights to an investor, and you especially don't need to start from scratch. What I help artists do is set up the structure to build a full-time creative career creating art and music, taking you from confused to a self-directed artist in 60 to 90 days. Over my corporate career, I worked across e-commerce, marketing, sales, and promotions for two of the largest entertainment companies on earth, Universal Music Group and Warner Brothers. I served some of the biggest, most well-known artists and bands in the world. Artists like The Weeknd, Kid Cudi, Blackpink, Public Enemy, Youngblood, The Rolling Stones, Ariana Grande, Nas, among many others, as well as the Harry Potter Wizarding World, helping promote their global exhibition in Munich, New York City, and Macau, China. If you want to have the decision to become a global superstar one day, this is the video to watch all the way to the end. And today I'm breaking down the exact structural blueprint that most artists are missing that make it very unclear to know how and when they can go full-time creating music and art. If you've been promoting your music for any time in the last 3 to 5 years, you know that the independent music model is broken and that the music industry is dead, because right now many artists are stuck in what I call the cul-de-sac. You drop a song that you poured your heart into, let alone the finances, creative energy, and favors from friends and family. Then you push out social media content hoping that something goes viral and changes your life forever, or you spend on ads and returning 0.004 cents for each click and then have no way to stay in touch with the people who did click through. You get a bump in streams, hopefully that compounds, but most of the time it doesn't, and then it's quiet again till you do this process all over again, spending another hundred or thousands of dollars to make a new song, new project, just to repeat the same process again and again until you ultimately consider giving up altogether. I've seen it too many times. And here's what the real tragedy is: even when artists do get a viral moment, many of them haven't built the infrastructure to actually sustain it or make the most of it. And after the attention disappears, they've left a massive amount of opportunity on the proverbial table. Having great music isn't enough anymore, mainly because you need 250,000 streams to make $1,000. With that same ratio, it takes 250 streams to make $1. So if you don't have a direct-to-fan infrastructure set up so that you can connect with the people that are giving you attention and have a fan experience to bring them to, you'll be missing out on a huge opportunity when that moment of virality does happen. I know this struggle deeply because I've been on both sides of the equation here as both an artist and an executive. Back in 2020, I was studying music business, audio production, and theater at SUNY Oneonta here in New York. When we went home for spring break, I was voted as one of the top 6 artists to have the opportunity to perform at our yearly O-Fest, a big opportunity where thousands of students and townspeople come out to watch a local artist from the college perform as the opener to a household name. Then we went home for spring break. And if you know anything about the United States in spring 2020, safe to say that concert did not happen. When the pandemic hit, I had a brutal crossroads and had to make a tough decision. It was either stay in school with a mediocre halfway experience because we still needed to be social distanced with a lot of classes canceled, or graduate early to lock in a full-time job since I had my foot in the door with an internship at Universal Music Group. I was absolutely crushed, angry, depressed by the craziness of the world at the time and the fact that I was taking extra credits every single semester to have the most amount of time freedom in my senior year that just got canceled. I had leadership roles in multiple clubs, I had a radio show, unlimited studio access with amazing equipment, great professors, great friends, great musically inclined friends, and was very well known on campus by faculty and staff and other students. Literally all of my dreams came crashing down and were no longer an option given the extremely difficult time that the world was in across the whole planet. So instead of going back to school and having a half-baked experience as a senior, I chose to take the leap. I graduated with honors. A month and a half after graduation, I received a full-time brand management and e-commerce role at Universal Music Group's Bravado, their brand management and merch label. That was my fork in the road. I learned and still study exactly how these entertainment brands structure and build fan connection around their creative brands, infuse their art direction into their promotions, design short and long-term brand campaigns, and drive massive direct-to-fan revenue alongside their streaming numbers and revenue from views. For the past 3.5 years, I've been molding unique creative ecosystems directly to hundreds of independent artists on hundreds of group and one-on-one calls, ideally so they can make the most of the attention that they do have and continue to build their audience with structure and direction from the ground up, all done in a way that their promotions always stay true to their values and the artist actually has fun creating and promoting their creative on social media. All this while releasing music and painting and art as an artist myself. So I know what it's like to be in the trenches both as a creative and as an executive. So I deeply know the business systems and what it takes to thrive as an artist, whether you're independent or signed to a label. To systematize this for many artists, I designed what I call the MAWBI, an acronym for the Music Artist World Build Intensive. The MAWBI is built on 3 core sections that take you out of the hope strategies that are thrown around here on social media and put you into complete control of your creative career, knowing the exact activities to keep your audience and fan base growing both in size and direct support, while staying true to your personal and artistic values. We translate your values, your story, and art direction into content. Not only does this allow you to eliminate the struggle of knowing what to create, but it also positions you as somebody new and fresh in the saturated genres in the music industry today. This way, you aren't just getting broad attention, you're connecting directly with the people and attracting the personalities that also match yours, making it much easier to create over time because you're just being yourself or just following your artistic direction. And you become more interesting because you actually bring a unique perspective into the landscape. Then, those people who engage the most get brought into a direct fan experience with you. So alongside your streaming platforms, you're also building direct connections to your audience. This allows you to launch direct-to-fan activations, events, and more without needing to fit your personality into a rigid funnel or technology that doesn't fit how you actually want to interact with people. And last, we set up the back-end structure so that with every release, not only are you growing, but you're also learning and getting the right data that you need to inform future decisions. Now, when the attention does hit and you do go viral, your creative ecosystem is ready and welcomes the attention happily. And it has the potential for that one-time viewer or casual listener to turn into a long-term supporting fan that will still be inside of your community decades from now. When you have these systems in place, you aren't at the mercy of a label or an executive, and you actually have more leverage when you do get the opportunity to potentially sign a deal with a label or company. And when you have more leverage, you get better terms because you actually know how to run your own operation. Most times, labels can get leverage by saying that they need to put a lot of resources into your creative operation, meaning they need to take more out of the deal. But if you already have a thriving operation, you are justified in saying that I'm good with or without y'all. And that's the position that you want to be in when you enter negotiations. So ironically, when you can run your own operation, you become exponentially more valuable to an independent or major label, but especially to the majors who are the ones who hold the keys to you becoming a global superstar, if that's what you desire. Otherwise, you can stay mostly off the map and have a niche fan base that supports a creative lifestyle and make a very nice living doing it. And today, I want to talk about what it takes to actually get to that point, the point where you can make the decision whether or not to become a world-changing artist. And that's what we designed together inside of the MAWBI.
So where I want to start off with is the difference between an artist that makes good music and one that shifts culture continuously. Because thousands of musicians can sing well, produce a nice sounding record, and create attractive visuals, execute a rollout, and share enough content and run enough ads to generate attention. And now with AI, I read that millions of songs are generated on the leading song generator platform per day. So if technical skill doesn't explain why one artist can become the public symbol of a genre, a defining sound or culture or belief, then what is the difference between them and another artist with similar ability? And that similar ability artist just remains one of the many respected artists in the same genre, but doesn't make that same impact. So an analogy that we can use for this is engines. The engine is a great invention. It changed transportation forever. However, the type of engine will change how the public understands it. For example, there's a difference between the engine inside of a lawnmower from 2004 and the engine inside of a 2026, only 10 in existence sports car. Both engines function and were built with skill, but only one out of the two represents one of the highest expressions of what an engine can become. So when it comes to music, a functional song can be in key, be well mixed and mastered, and be emotionally understandable, but a masterpiece in music goes beyond its basic functions. How does it do that? An artistic masterpiece comes from someone who's been absorbed into the spirit of the time, and their individual human experience was translated creatively into a human experience that's universal. What does that mean? Their art is allowing other people to see themselves inside of what happened to that artist and their story. It's capturing a feeling or energy that a group of people have felt but could not explain, or their music becomes a soundtrack to a culture or an energy that's relevant to the moment in time. Because of that, that music artist begins to become a symbol because now their private experience and their artistic creativity has become useful to the public in understanding more about their lives or their cultural experience. But we all are doing that, right? We're all putting some type of creative energy or meaning into our art, and we may not explain it all the time. Because of that, work alone does not explain how or why people decide that a certain meaning or energy or story should become attached to the artist's name. So in a winner-take-most economy, which is where music is at right now, and said in other words, it's a group of superstars get most of the economic pie, while the rest of the millions of artists compete for the rest. So because of this, the distributors or the market makers come first in deciding what music actually reaches the public and has the most opportunity to be able to be seen, read about, and infused into our culture and daily lives. We're seeing this more and more with companies and agencies that will do clipping campaigns or distribution campaigns or have multiple fan accounts around the same artist, seeding content and feeding everybody's narrative about the dead internet theory as well. So given that fact, each group at the top affects the collective meaning and the collective culture that people attach to the art and the artist. Because together, we help each other answer, who is this artist? What do they represent? And how are we supposed to understand what they're doing? Because people need more than just good music to actually be interested in an artist. Listeners are surrounded by more good music than we can consume in a lifetime. Our streaming apps have given us access to millions of songs, so I'm sure you're aware, even with your own music, that the existence of another good song does not create urgency for people to want to participate in your artistic experience. Therefore, the public, fans, listeners, journalists, curators, promoters, business partners, these groups of people are forced to use signals. They notice who invested in the artist, who's collaborated with them, who's reviewed the releases, where have they performed, which communities are a fan of them, who hates them, and what are the stories that surround the music. One of the best examples of this is in the art and painting market, where a person may buy from an unknown artist studio at one price, but then that artist gets a dealer, then they get a favorable review in a popular magazine or newspaper, and then an important museum buys one of their works. Now, if the demand for this artist's work is increasing because of all these things, but they have the same amount of artwork available, the price has no choice but to go up. So when somebody does buy art at a high price, they bought now because they waited to make sure that it's worth it. And people have the same relationship to music artists. This principle travels directly into the music industry. For example, a fan is rarely paying $300 for the raw materials inside a limited box set. A patron isn't paying a premium for a signed vinyl record for the ease of listening, of needing a record player to even hear the music. So they're not paying extra because the raw materials suddenly change. They're paying extra because the artwork has become significant, either culturally or in their personal life. So for a music artist, the long-term objective is to increase what your name means and what it allows you to price your products, experiences, or piece of IP that still sounds fair to another person. For example, a limited vinyl record with a personally signed and dated letter from a defining era with a culturally significant artist becomes evidence that the buyer was present and was a fan and supporter before the rest of the world caught on. Now, if somebody decided to list this as a item on one of these kind of resale sites or put it up on auction, whatever they bought it for is going to be a lot less than what they're able to price it for at that auction. Hopefully, this is making sense. Because for an artist that's trying to earn a top 10% income in the United States, you need about 25 million streams to be able to do that. So what would help is being able to add symbolic value to your art. Because if you can add symbolic value to your art, you unlock more levels of exchange, being people care about your recorded music, they feel belonging through the objects that you make that are affordable, they go to live events, they participate in your memberships, they get the premium items or the limited editions, and they might take you up on a high value experience if it comes with proximity and behind the scenes to you or your creative process. And if they hold on to it long enough and you become culturally significant, they have made an extremely wise investment and it can be worth something on an auction or something like that. So what the artist is ultimately doing is creating different ways for different publics to enter, understand, and potentially become a representative of their story and the meaning that they've crafted. So a lasting artist has both a body of work and narrative evidence. Evidence can include songs, performances, interviews, letters, journals, documentaries, collaborator memories, fan stories, conflicts, public decisions, photographs, archives, testimony from people who knew the artist, because together, later generations will continue to ask, who was this person? What did they represent? What did their work cost them? What did their work mean to others? Why did they matter to the scene? And based on all that, how should we understand them now? And the most durable symbols in music artistry and across industries where public figures are a part of them, the most durable symbols have enough tension and personal and universal conflicts and contradiction with society that every generation has felt compelled to continue to comment, to document, and to keep the story evolving and show how they have continued to impact the present day. Legends are remembered because their vision and direction was strong enough that it was interpretable by other people and it was easily spread. So the goal for you is to build enough artistic depth, document your history, document the consequences that your art is causing you and others, as well as the cultural tension that it caused. Because then you're giving people enough to produce more interpretations of your art after the original moment has passed. I'm sure you can think of a few artists that are still debated and pitted against each other, even though we are months and maybe years, depending on when you're watching this video, from when that cultural moment actually occurred. So why do most artists not reach that point? It's because they start with surface level distinctions, things that other people can easily copy. Because if other people can do it and it doesn't take that much effort, it won't supply the energy needed that symbolism requires. It's the perfect example of being a lawnmower engine versus a one-of-a-kind engine in a supercar. If your work functions, your content does its job, your release arrives on schedule, but none of it reveals a deep enough truth for a group of people to use, you will stay stuck in this, I'm making progress, but I'm not becoming culturally significant. One of the other issues is that artists will treat the public as one giant audience. What we should do instead is speak about publics, plural, because there might be a bunch of people in the United States where I live, but different groups within the United States have different histories, they have different desires, resources, reference points, and reasons for caring or not caring about your music. For example, a song or a record, an album, may be completely ignored by a broad audience, but be absolutely sacred inside of one neighborhood, a subculture, a profession, an identity group, or a community. And that is a signal of symbolic ownership, because the artist has become important to a specific group, and they've decided that the artist is expressing something about us. It's not just the artist expressing things about themselves. They have now turned their personal, private experience into something that represents a greater culture. And how does an artist get to the point of representing a greater culture? It's because they finally stop chasing approval from other artists or their friends and family, while people who are actually capable of telling their story on their behalf to much larger publics, representatives, and people who can provide recognition at scale, which is where the distributors come back from what we were talking about earlier. So to become symbolic, an artist made their individual private truth, their beliefs, their vision universal and visible on many occasions through many different mediums. And their career will begin to compound when that meaning and story becomes inseparable from their name. The value that an artist generates has two connected sources. The first comes from their artwork and their creative, where they have made their individual or emotional experience universal to others or the subcultures that they can connect with. And then the second comes from the systems that are around the work. Systems being distributors, critics, different publics, supporters, journalists, and other help within different industries, collaborations, partnerships, etc. All of these things help determine who or what enters the market at scale, how the work is interpreted, what narrative gets repeated about the artist and their art, and what level of confidence surrounds the artist, and who actually receives the lasting credit for a particular change in the culture. So, in short, the full system can be boiled down to a private experience or emotional experience being transformed into a universal meaning, so that it doesn't only connect to you, it can now connect to the viewer or the listener or the experiencer. And the artwork and the stories that are told around that artwork give people the language to retell the story on the artist's behalf. And if that happens enough, their career and their notoriety within the certain subcultures and cultures it matters to, especially when it's pop culture, helps their message and their presence increase within society. And if everything is set up in the back end, when people go to discover more about the artist or find out what they're up to, after these people have moved the meaning and narratives into these networks, these specific cultures and communities will adopt the artist and retell their story on their behalf, which helps to drive purchases and participation and reduce people's uncertainty that this artist can actually deliver. Because moral of the story, this does not happen overnight. That is why I had this little hourglass thing in here, because it takes time. We need to give the world enough time to repeat the story, repeat the narrative, until it becomes a part of the culture's canon. Where now, when people think of a certain word, or they think of a certain time period, or they think of a musical era, your name starts to pop up as one of those names within that space. The repetition of these stories and seeing you and your artwork and hearing your music in many different places allows people to attach different stories and narratives to your name and your art, and likely a couple memes. This is the path from having good music to becoming a cultural symbol. At the same time, this is also the path from low value access to now people being willing to pay the premium to participate. This is how you move beyond being known for good music and your name gets attached to greater movements in cultures and communities. You go from just another artist in a growing number of creators, musicians, and AI creators to a world changer. And that world build is what the MAWBI is designed to help an artist create, not just a better looking brand or a content calendar or going back and forth with an AI draining your cognitive energy. And it's not a course. What the MAWBI does is help an artist identify what the private truth is at the center of their work, then connect it to the right publics, shaping the language that surrounds their artwork to be able to create visible evidence so that they're able to recruit people who can help transfer its story and transfer its meaning to these larger distributors that have connection to more publics. And when you can do that and multiply your art through other people and their platforms, when you have their attention, you will also be set up with multiple economic pathways through which people can participate. So the MAWBI, which is short for Music Artist World Build Intensive, is built on 5 core values that lead the way, being art first, leading your art direction with self-reflection so you're able to deeply understand yourself and your artistic vision, and then making a decision whether or not you are going to be amplifying who you are or building an aesthetic, story-driven world. Then once you know that, you eliminate the guessing game on what to post, who to target, and where to reach people, because now your strategy will be based in your values and an art direction that you believe in and have carefully curated. And by doing this, you are simplifying what your art world looks like. So now you are focused on creating all of those elements that are going to reach people from one cohesive world and one storyline instead of scattering and spreading yourself into one-off attempts. Through this, you'll build a sticky and loyal fan base that grows year over year and is under your direct contact and control so that you are able to reach your fan base at any time. So the MAWBI system operates as a 4-part connected loop. First, you're discovering and clearly identifying and understanding what your artistic values are. And then from those values, you outline the exact fans and audiences that will align with those artistic values. And now that you have both who you're looking to reach and what you stand for, so you have a unique perspective when you reach them, you design a story-driven music rollout that creates momentum and financial support, not just streams. And when you have this process down pat, you're able to continue to repeat it and keep building towards your long-term creative mission with fans who engage for years or decades, because you are continuing to reach more and more people that align with your values and your energy. So when you realize that you don't have to guess anymore and you just have to decide your direction, you get the feeling that 2 of the artists that I've worked with took away from creating and molding their direction within the MAWBI. Some other reviews from other artists, mainly because what happens when you make a decision on who you want to become and what you want to represent, it makes the process of actually clarifying and knowing what you're building towards, both in the long term and today. And when you can connect your long term to the stories and the values that you have as a human being, but also are within your music, you're able to transfer that meaning as a universal one, or one that can connect with more communities and subcultures than just the people who know you best. So not only do you build your own unique artistic world, you now have the foundation to become a world-changing artist. Just like more of these artists that have created and worked with me within the program and have had clarity and demystification around many different facets of their art career. So it's a 3-step process. First, it starts with your brand and your narrative, which is the identity excavation. Because if you're not already magnetizing the right people or feeling like you're able to relentlessly promote yourself or your music, because part of you is afraid that your true identity or creative vision will be seen, judged, and misunderstood. And that fear of exile or removal from the tribe, which did matter when we were cave people and hunting and gathering and running from tigers, keeps your message blurry, your art half-hearted, and your audience confused on who you actually are and what you stand for. So the more aligned you are with who you are and where you're going, the easier it gets to be able to stand firm in the public eye. Overall, music, art, and being in the public eye really comes down to having a vision. Because without a vision, you have dreams, but no map of how to get there because you haven't decided where you want to go. It's like having a GPS and you have an idea that you want to go west. But if you were honest with yourself, you'd want to go to Spokane, Washington. But everyone else says you got to go to LA, but you really want to go to Spokane. That's the difference between having a vision and not having a vision. An artist with a vision knows who they are and what they represent in art. They know who they serve. They know that each project has an audience for it, has a vibe that is cohesive and connects each one to the last. And they know exactly how they want to monetize because there's many different options and all of them don't have to be used. And they lead their teammates and creative collaborators to success. So once you're clear on your vision, you now turn that brand and narrative into content and creative. Because the reality is people invest into your art for 2 core reasons, either because they like you, your story, your personality, lore, upbringing, narrative, or relatable human experience that your art represents, or they actually really enjoy your music, your performances, the visual direction, and your actual skill as an artist and musician. Yes, skill and talent is required, but skill and talent looks different depending on what your goals are. So when you combine you and your creative, narrative, and skills with an audience, you now have created the superfan map. This is a reciprocal relationship between you, your artwork, your audience, and it never disappears. Never. Intentionally or unintentionally. As long as you're promoting something, this relationship will not disappear. So it's very, very important to be aware of what relationship you're building and what you're building it towards. Because most of the planet has no idea you exist. Most of the planet will never know you exist. And that's completely fine, unless you become one of the most famous people on Earth, which is also a possibility. Audience and familiarity builds in stages. And if you're not attracting your dream audience already, it's because your content is meeting people at a different stage than what you're trying to attract. You can't pitch, or you don't pitch, a $300 vinyl box set to a stranger who's just seen a 20-second reel of your music for the first time. Could it happen physically? Yes. Is that going to happen? It's very, very, very unlikely. What you need to do is focus less on what to create and focus more on how to create it for where your fans fans are in their journey of discovery with you. For example, when you release a new single, people are going to be connecting with different elements of your art world depending on where they are in the journey. If you want to go through all 5 of those levels, feel free. But the difference between someone who is just discovering you for the first time compared to the super fan who's already in the text community, has already bought stuff from you, has already seen you perform, it's a massive difference. So what happens when you start implementing this is that you start to have a direction in where you're going, and the exact fans and people that you're looking for that are likely already engaging with your work, but you're probably disregarding them as just another engagement in a pool of likes, comments, and DM messages. But when you actually lock in on what you're looking to represent and how your internal life experience can be translated into a universal meaning that other people can connect with and present it in a manner that people are excited about or intrigued by or are emotionally moved by, you'll start to see results not only on social media change, but also when it comes to your offers and the paths to support that you are providing to your audience. And speaking of the path to support from your audience, the last stage is sales and longevity, because most artists' campaigns look and sound like something, here's all the things I can do, but all of it is not actually connected to a source of truth or to an art direction. They're just doing it because they can, and they know they need to make content or engage with their audience. So they're spreading themselves thin and spreading themselves out in a way that it's not actually connected to the fan experience that they want to have and create for people. So to solve this, we have the Magnum Opus Rollout. And what the Magnum Opus Rollout does is stem all paths for creative and fan experiences, paths to support from one core idea and one core creative world. When you do this, not only does it get easier to come up with ideas, it gets easy to know what your day-to-day activities should be, because you're not just creating to create now, you are now working backwards from the exact fan experience that you want to have with people. So instead of just doing something because you've seen other artists do it, you're doing it because you want to do it. And it makes making content more exciting because you're no longer just making content to make content and get famous. You are promoting your fan experience that you've designed and that you want to have. So now it's less about the individual content piece. It's more about the fan experience that you want to have with people that love what you do and want to support it. And that's what the Magnum Opus Rollout solves, is that you're no longer starting from scratch. You're no longer waking up thinking about what should I post today. You're no longer working hard with no path to support. What you're doing is now promoting from a source, a foundation where not only are you promoting something that you want to bring to life and is sourced from your original creative world that was within the music or your values as an artist and creative. When people do join, when people do support, when people do buy, you're focused on retaining them. It'll be less about, I need all the followers. It'll be more about, I need the right people, the right followers, the right fans, the ones who are going to stick with me year over year. Because if people stick with you, you don't need millions of fans to earn a nice living. There is a study done by one of the top brands in music that the average superfan spends $52 a year with their favorite artist. $52 a year breaks down to $4.33 a month. $52 a year is 2 t-shirts a year. And if you wanted to earn a top 10% income in the United States, you would need approximately 2,596 superfans that spend $52 a year with you. You don't need the whole world to earn a nice living. And it's not just about earning a nice living, it's also about why and what you are creating your art for. Because the artists who break through aren't always louder. More often, they're just clearer on their direction, which has the effect of them being able to be louder because they know who they are, and they know what they represent, and they know what they care about. And it gets easier for them to design worlds and creatives and stories and narratives because it's all stemming from their values and what they stand on. So they're not coming up with anything new. They're just looking in the mirror and being able to face the fact that they're not happy with everything in the world. And there are some things that they are happy about, and there are some things in the world that they want to challenge, and there's some things in the world that they want to change. And having a vision of where they want to go and who they want to be a representative of, makes the whole process easier. And when an artist does this, fans don't only just enjoy their music, they feel connected to it just as much as they feel connected to the artist, or they feel more connected to the artist that they're just listening to their music to support them. What you have to realize is you're not just creating content or promoting your music. You're building a culture around the things that you care about and your values. And when you attract the right people, you teach those people how to belong, participate, and pass it on, because then they can adopt the identity of being your fan and supporter. We're aligning with the mastery over yourself as an artist and prioritizing connection with your audience. If you're able to design stories that have enough legs to be a consistent narrative across years, that can allow people to come up with lore, either that you're seeding or that fans are coming up with on their own, that you have owned and private lists that you can always access whether or not social media is up or down for the day, and being able to manufacture moments that your fans deeply understand but capture the attention of the public at large. The pros game is structure and momentum and knowing exactly how it's generated and exactly how a fan sees them for the first time, then becomes their fan, then becomes their supporter, knowing exactly how it works. And they're always moving towards their self-determined ultimate goal, and you can too. We call that your peak horizon. No longer will you need to be desperate, having high vanity metrics with a low engagement. We know exactly how that happened, and not have cohesion across your releases. Having sustainability means you're secure in your following and your engagement, no matter what size it is, because it is growing. As long as you are doing the inputs, it is growing, even if the metrics don't say it. And I've done a lot of research on this. You are good. Do not worry. And you're directing calls to action to people who are showing active participation. All of your projects are created from one world. You maintain a long-term outlook and you build warm connections. You stay in your lane and you trust your process because it will happen. You will have the world built and the blueprint designed to create that success as long as you stick to it. The moral of this story, when you align your content, your fan journey, your offers, your creative to your values and your direction from the person you are today, who you are, what you represent, what you stand for, and where you're looking to go in the long term, not only will you attract higher value opportunities with your direct fandom, you will have attracted higher value opportunities from brands, venues, festivals, cultures, communities, and people within those popular cultures and subcultures that you have connected with through translating your individual human experience into a universal truth through your artwork and your content creative. So please remember that you do not need 8 billion people. The most monthly streamed artist on the most popular streaming platform in the world is serving less than 5% of the global population. It's a very, very small slice of the public. Obviously, we're talking about the whole planet here, so it's a lot of people. They are still only serving a small sliver. Maybe if you add in the other platforms, it gets a little bigger, but it's less than 25%, and I can guarantee that. That's the whole point. You don't have to serve the whole world. You just serve the people who can connect to your values, your truth, and the way that you translate those values and truths into creative, into music, into visuals, into ways that you can connect with the public. And if a super fan is a fan who spends $52 a year, if you have 2,596 people pay you $5 a month, you will have a top 10% income in the United States. Less than 2,600 people. It is not that many. So imagine this with me. Imagine having one story in Rollout that outlines everything for you. Imagine the mental space you would unlock knowing you didn't have to show up and guess what to post or to send people to. Imagine being able to build a rollout that's aligned and fulfilling, that fans feel emotionally attached to your inner circle for months, years, if not decades. And imagine attracting new fans daily who are curious to discover more about you instead of you trying to chase them. And imagine how easy your marketing becomes when you're finally speaking to the exact people who you want to reach. There is a time and place for going super viral, but most of the time you don't need to. And if you're not picking up on that yet, I'm not sure if you'll pick up on it ever. I don't need to say that. So as a whole, that is the Music Artist World Build Intensive, aka the MAWBI. We're keeping it art first. We're deciding whether or not you want to be authentic or conceptual with your creative, having a structured strategy that's built around your values. And we're keeping it simple so that you can build an art and music career with longevity, freedom, and self-direction.
So I leave you with two options. With this video, you have the ability to now take this direction and build the ecosystem necessary to become a world-changing artist that reaches around the globe and becomes a part of cultural canon. You can very much go ahead, implement this system into your creativity, and through trial and error, get to the point where your values are aligned with your content and your content attracts the right people and the right people are supporting your career. Or option two, we can work together to build this ecosystem in just 60 to 90 days. If you're ready and willing to look in the mirror, figure out who you are, and infuse your values into your future content and creative activations. And you'll do that through the MAWBI process. This program is not for everyone, especially if you're not willing to work, not willing to take this seriously, and believe that if you just go viral, all of your problems will be solved. You can try to figure out fan activations, ecosystems, content, and having a repeatable process to determine your branding and identity for each project and go through trial and error over the next 2 to 3 years, or work with me inside of the MAWBI program and implement everything within 60 to 90 days. If you're ready to take the leap and evolve into the next level of your artistry, click the link, book some time to chat with me, and let's see if the MAWBI program is a good fit for you. Until next time, peace.